Hello class, welcome back again in our online discussion in this course Research 1. So in this online lecture, we're going to discuss on the different sampling techniques for your research paper. So you need to use the appropriate sampling techniques in order to have this data that is really relevant for your research paper. So by having a full knowledge or understanding of the sampling techniques, we can have or we can collect a nice data, as well as we can able to determine the appropriate individual or population that will answer our survey questionnaire or our instrument. Okay, so once again, I welcome you all in our online lecture, and we will discuss about the sampling techniques in research. So again, this is really important that we're going to discuss because this is part of the research methodology, and we can able to determine the reliability and validity of the outcome of our study. So in this session, we're going to discuss the significance of the sampling, the different sampling techniques, and also the factors that influence in selecting our research respondents. So first, we're going to discuss the importance of sampling. Sampling involves selecting a subset of individuals or items from a larger population to represent it accurately. Okay, so instead of asking question or distributing the survey questionnaire to the entire population, we'll just get a sample. Okay, sample. So for example, we have a study that our respondents will be the community of a specific barangay. So for example, the population of the barangay has a 5,000 individual. So instead of distributing the survey questionnaire to the 5,000 individual, you'll just get a sample size, okay, that will represent the entire population. Same also if we want to have this laboratory test of our blood or our urine, instead of getting all the blood in our body or entire um, volume of urine in our body, you'll just get a sample for the CBC for the blood and urinalysis to test our urine or to test our blood if there's something wrong in our in our blood or in our urine for the purpose of medication. So we can save time, money, effort, and energy if we'll just get a sample instead of the entire population. Also, the importance of sampling, it allows the researchers to draw conclusions about the population instead of the entire population without studying every single members, because we will just a sample that will represent the entire population. So we can save more um, resources, or it will become more feasible at the same time cost effective. Another importance of sampling, if we are going to use the proper sampling, it will ensure uh, the general or the generic and the validity of the research findings. Okay, so sampling is really important so that we can save time, efforts, and energy instead of distributing the entire population or entire individual, especially if they have this larger entire population, so we can save time, efforts, and energy, especially if we are going to use the proper sampling techniques. So we can get an important data, we can get an reliable data and valid data because we select the proper sampling techniques, or we have this um, appropriate individual that will participate in our research paper or in our research for our research paper. Now we're going to discuss the different types of sampling techniques. We have random sampling, non-random sampling, and mixed sampling. First, we're going to discuss what are the examples of random sampling. So when we say random sampling, every member of the population, for example, 5,000 whole population, so all 5,000 individual has an equal chance of being selected. Okay, for example, 5,000, you will just randomly select using a different device or application that will randomly select who will be the respondents of our research paper. So, for example, in our face-to-face class, I've used the wheel of names. So I listed all the students that enrolled in my course. So all of you has an equal chance to be selected. So I use a wheel of names for picking up the name of a certain students that will be asked for a certain question. Okay, so equal chance to be selected. So that is a random sampling. Also, this technique includes simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, and stratified random sampling. Okay, I think I need to write here. We have a simple random techniques or simple random sampling. We also have systematic random sampling. Systematic, this is simple. And we also have stratified random sampling. Okay, you can just search in the internet. The first one is the simple random sampling. We also have systematic random sampling and stratified random sampling. When we say simple random sampling or technique, uh, just like I'm giving you an example, that is the wheel of names. Everyone has a equal chance to be part of the Q&A portion. Okay. When we say systematic random sampling, you'll select a certain, you will have, for example, every fifth students will be part of the random sampling. So those who are in the fifth, and then the 10th, and 15th, and then 20, 25. So that is an example of systematic random sampling. So we also have this stratified random sampling. It means that you will set for example, um, all students in third year section A, but I will only select the female. So we will have a random sampling on the female only. Okay, systematic random sampling. Again, for the simple, everyone has an equal chance to be selected. The system random sampling, there's for example, sequence every third or every fourth, every fifth of the list of, for example, the students enrolled in a certain subject. And when we say stratified random sampling, it means that you will get, you will have a set of, or have a subgroup, and then on that particular subgroup, you will have a random selection of the respondents. Okay. So for some random sampling, we have simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, and stratified random sampling. Now let's proceed to the non-random sampling. Okay. So from the word non-random sampling, it means that not all individual or part of the whole population has an equal chance of being involved in the research, okay, or in the study. So this technique includes also I will write here, convenience sampling. We also have purposive sampling, and we have snowball sampling. Convenience, purposive, and snowball sampling. So example of the convenience sampling, for example, you went into a mall, and then every individual that you encountered, you distribute the survey questionnaire. So it is an easy to find research respondents because this is a convenience sampling. But the disadvantage of that, you will get bad data that will eventually have a bad findings, or you will have the bottom line here, you have the bad output of your research paper. So this is not an advisable to use the convenient sampling, um, except if you have this different kind of study, special kind of study. Now we also have this purposive sampling. So you will select a particular individual to involve your study or your research. For example, uh, you want to determine the leadership style of the managers of the different resorts in ANDA. So you just purposely select your research respondents. Okay, purposives. You will no longer use the random sampling because we only have the limited managers or supervisors of certain resorts, especially with the same municipality. Purposive. Okay. And then the third one is snowball sampling, in which the participants or respondents will provide a suggestion or selection of the next respondents. So, for example, if you will interview or give a questionnaire to a specific individual, and then you will suggest who will be the possible or who are the other individual that can also answer the same question that you have provided to the specific respondents. For example, if you have the controversial of drug user, so you have no idea who are the drug user in the barangay. So, for example, if they are a drug user, you have interview or asked to answer your survey questionnaire. So you can ask also them um, who are the other individual that also use drugs in your barangay or in your municipality. So, for example, if the respondents would say, "I have known someone in Purok Tres that use the drugs." Okay, you can go to this specific address or ask question about this one. So you will go to the address that mentioned by the first respondents. So that is the snowball sampling. Just like in the other places, like in Europe, we have this mountain and they have snow. So when you rule a snow from small, it will become bigger. So you will have this um, other respondents based on the suggestion or advice of the previous respondents. Okay, and lastly, for the other type of sampling techniques, we have this mixed sampling, mixture of random sampling and mixture of non-random sampling. Now let's proceed to the factors influencing sampling technique selection. So first is the population size. So larger populations may require different sampling techniques than a smaller ones. So for example, your population size is the community of a certain barangay that will be considered a large population. And also if you have this room attendance only of certain resorts, that will be considered a small population size. So these are the example of factors that influence the sampling techniques in our selection. Next, also we have this research objectives. This is also one of the factor that will influence our sampling technique selection, because the goals of the study indicate the most appropriate sampling technique. So you need to review also your objectives or the statement of the problem. The third one is the available resources. So we need to think that we have this time, budget, and logistical constraints that will influence our sampling decisions. So we need also to consider our resources, our finances, our transportations, and others. So those are examples of the factors that influence our sampling techniques. The fourth one, we have this, which is the last one, accessibility of the population. Accessibility of population, it means that some populations may be difficult to reach and affecting the choices of sampling techniques. So we need also to consider the accessibility, or in other words, you need to ask question if you can able to reach those respondents or participants of your research or of your study. So you need to consider those factors. Okay, and also we need to consider other areas that will have this effective sampling. The first one is the representativeness. You need to ensure that the sample is accurately reflects the characteristics of the population. So you need to make sure that the sample size will represent the entire population. The second one is the sample size. So you need to ask if it is sufficient, the sample size is sufficient that is represents the entire populations, and we need to have this statistical power and generalization of your research paper. That is why our statistician suggests that we need to have a minimum of 30 respondents. Unless if you are going to use the total enumeration, means that all population, if you only have lower than 30, so you can use that. Okay. Again, if it is beyond 30, the minimum is 30 respondents. But if you are going to use the total population, it means that all the individuals of that particular population, you can use lower than 30. Okay. The third one is the sampling bias, because it will minimize the bias through careful selection methods and randomization. Okay. So we need to consider also in selecting the sample size of our research paper to avoid some bias. And lastly, the ethical consideration. That is why we need to respect the participants' rights and ensure informed consent and confidentiality. So when you distribute your survey questionnaire, you need to ask um, the consent for the respondents if they want to answer your survey questionnaire. So you should not force your respondents to answer your questionnaire. Okay, you need to ask their consent first. And you need to make sure that the data that you will be collected is a confidential. So you will not um, post on the Facebook or in any social media about the response of the particular respondents. That is why in your research questionnaire you have put their name, and then you have this close and open parenthesis optional. It means that you give right to the respondents to either write his or her name or just refrain from putting his or her name and the respondents for the purpose of confidentiality. Okay, so as to decisions on what to use the sampling technique, it's either random sampling, which is the simple random, systematic random, or stratified random. Or for non-random sampling, we have um, snowball sampling techniques, we have purposive sampling technique, quota sampling technique, or convenience sampling technique, or mixed sampling. So you have the right, or you have the freedom to choose, and also you can ask advice from the advisor or let them read your methodology in the part of um, research respondents in selecting your participants or respondents. But don't worry, this is just only a proposal, so there are possible that your sampling technique will be changed according to the suggestion of the panel members, specifically one of the panel members who is a statistician. Okay, and now we are in the last slide for the conclusion. Sampling techniques plays an important part in your research or any research or any study of a certain researcher, because it will influence the validity and reliability of the findings of your study. So if you are going to understand the different sampling methods as I have discussed, you as a researcher can make an informed decision based on your objectives and some possible constraints or problems. So you need to remember that the quality of your sample will determine the quality of your research outcomes. So if you have this low quality of your data because you have used the wrong sampling techniques, or you have the respondents that is not appropriate for your study, it means that there's a big possibility that the output of your research paper is not good also. So if you have a good quality of the data because you choose the right sampling techniques, expected that you also have a good quality of your research outcome. Okay, so if you have any question, you can ask me during our face-to-face class, and don't forget to answer the evaluation quiz via Google form.